Global stocks neared record highs in a week where inflation figures could make or break expectations for earlier U.S. rate cuts. There are a host of Fed speakers this week to update markets on their thinking, including Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who appears with the head of the Dutch Central Bank. In local company news, Vodacom reported a 10.8% fall in full-year earnings impacted by startup losses in Ethiopia, higher finance and energy costs, and inflationary pressures. Meanwhile, WeBuyCars, which listed on the JSE last month, reported a 26% rise in core headline earnings for the first half, despite a tough trading environment that was characterized by high interest rates and fuel costs. To give us perspective on the markets, we are joined by Gary Boyson from Rand Swiss. Gary, thank you so much for your time. So I mentioned WeBuyCars as well as Vodacom. Which of the two companies caught your attention?
Well, I think we've got to look at WeBuyCars. It's the new listing on the local exchange, listed on the 11th of April. And I think you were at the listing with me. And looking at it, the stock up around 2.3% on the day. Well bid above the listing price as well. So currently trading 21.65, and a very decent set of numbers. So looking at it, we had core headline earnings up 26%. Strong volumes, higher selling prices. And we've just seen the growth of this company, specifically in terms of their selling volumes over the last couple of years. If you look back to 2021, they were selling around 7,000 cars per month. That's grown to around 14,000 per month at the moment. And the group says it has ambitions by 2028 to sell around 23,000 cars per month. So, looking at pretty much doubling its market share. So a nice new listing story. And after just over a month of trade, the stock price is holding and moving higher.
This week, we're paying attention to lots of data coming in, as well as Fed speak. When you look at how we've repriced interest rates and where we think interest rate cuts will be going for the rest of the year, what data do you believe will be crucial before the Fed makes a move?
Well, I think it's going to come down to the usual numbers. So it's of course the U.S. unemployment rate, the U.S. labor market is going to be critical in informing what your inflation expectation is. But the big number, of course, are the inflation numbers that come out of the U.S. So anytime you have inflation numbers coming out of the U.S., it's pretty important. And we obviously have some U.S. inflation data coming out this week. So we're going to get basically the core inflation and the headline inflation numbers out on Wednesday. So 2:30 on Wednesday is what you have to look for. And the expectation, I really try and focus on core, which strips out the food prices and the energy prices, which are very, very volatile and tends to move the number around. We're looking at core inflation coming in at 3.6% as the consensus, and that's down from 3.8% previously. So if it does, that's a steady move towards the target. And if you get a slightly lower inflation print on Wednesday, I think you'll see those expectations of the first rate cut moving forward, which at the moment I believe are pricing around September. We're looking at probably one, maybe two by the end of the year.
If you had to look at the performance of SA equities versus global equities, where to from here?
Well, if I have to look at it, we've been underperforming a little bit, compared to global counterparts. So if you look at year to date, we're up. Remember, I've got to change this. I've got to rebase this into US dollars. So the JSE is up around 3.5% year to date. If you consider where we are in US dollars, obviously we've had this huge strengthening in the currency. Your rand dollar exchange rate trading around 18.35 at the moment. That doesn't really stack up to our international peers. So strangely, of the indices that I had a look at this morning, the Euro Stoxx 50 actually doing the best, up almost 12% in dollar terms for the year. The S&P 500 up around 1%, and then not exactly an index, but if you look at specifically the China large cap sector, that has had an absolutely killer year, up almost 17% in dollar terms. But if I look out 1 year, the Chinese large cap segment is actually flat. So they had a very, very tough end of 2023, but have recovered nicely into 2024. Looking at the FTSE is kind of middle of the road, up around 9% for the year in dollar terms as well. So JSE lagging a little bit, and I think that some of the resource counters just getting punished.
I'm curious, how are you playing the AI theme in your portfolio outside of the typical Meta, etc.?
So the way that we pay it at Ransos, we actually have a unique AI portfolio. So it's a thematic strategy. Essentially it covers a couple of things. So we obviously, it's a very specialist segment of the market. So we've got OpenAI, for example, having a surprise announcement tonight. We don't know what it's about, but I think Viv, who runs that portfolio, is going to be watching it very, very carefully. But typically we look at the big model managers, so the likes of Meta, Google, Meta through Llama, Google through Gemini, and of course Microsoft through ChatGPT and OpenAI. But we're also looking at other segments. So we look at also data centers specifically. We've been topping up on Equinix in our global portfolio, which is a data center manager. But you've got to own the chip makers if you're looking at AI. So you've got to have things like NVIDIA, you've got to have AMD, Intel. Those I think are also key to the strategy. And then of course you've got to spread a little bit deeper now, because already the AI almost revolution that we're seeing, you need to, we believe, start looking at downstream players as well. What industries are going to be impacted by the rise of AI? And it's really industries that require the computation and the analysis of large data sets. So one industry that we're looking at specifically is the pharmaceutical sector. Specifically if you look at AlphaFold 3, which is a Google business, and what they can do with essentially analyzing models and drug interactions is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And that should be a massive tailwind to that sector. So you can't just look at the AI players. I think you've got to start looking downstream at what the benefits of AI are going to be for other companies.
Gary, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. That is Gary Boyson, who is a portfolio at Rand Swiss. And as he mentioned, the key data point is the CPI report for Wednesday. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more news for you, so stay tuned.